Step 9 in our MakiBox assembly marathon. So, starting to get to the last bits. You'll need this casing part, so look for the one that has all the little grill marks on it. It's the top casing. And then, let's see, what do we need? There's a lot of components that are needed just as you get to them. So you should pretty much need a lot of the remaining plastic components. So you're going to need these two parts that are for the SIM drive. You're going to need the idle wheel. You will need the 3 of the 4 corner blocks. You'll end up being the long end 3 screws that are left over. Of course, a bunch of the standard screws, and you're also going to need your extrusion drive motor that has the extrusion drive fitted onto it. And you'll end up needing your feed tube. In the next step, you'll want to have these stuff that fits over it. And you'll need the wiring for your extruder. Now, the connectors may be a little bit different for the final production. We're considering going to a 6-pin connector again, so that it's one assembly instead of 2 separate wires, similar to the hotbed. Right now, so the thermistor wire, which should be the thinner one, has a 2-pin connector on one end. Now for the hot end, you've got a 4-pin connector that looks like that, same as the hotbed, one that goes to the driver board. And currently on the other end, you've got a 2-pin connector that has a slightly chunkier outlook for the hot end. So this end actually goes into the hot end itself, and then the other end goes to the driver board. I'll just place those right there for now. Okay, so step 1. Let's fit our extrusion assembly together. Okay, so we'll start with this guy, and it orients in this direction. And what you're going to wind up doing is fitting the wire ends that go to the driver board, fit through here, through that channel right there. Okay. And then on their feed tube, now for the current ones that we're shipping, you'll want to look, you might need to use some light to see. There's going to be one end that has a little bit longer of an insert piece. If you hold it up to a light, you'll see that it's a little bit deeper. The end that doesn't have the deep support, fit it right there. Okay. Now, of course, you can just do all this separately, which kind of illustrating where it winds up going. The idle wheel, there's a long side and a short side on the pin. Put the long pin into this face, like so. And then for this piece, you'll see there's a side that has a ring on it, and then you'll see a side that has a circular indentation in the middle. Do this face out and capture everything that you've put into place so far. At this point, you might find it handy to take your long N3 screws, just skewer it on there. And that just kind of holds everything in place temporarily. And then take your drive motor and then couple it right into that circular indentation in the middle. Pull it all together. Take your smaller wrench, which is for N3 screws, and tighten everything down. So again, kind of get everything started, and then you'll wind up tightening things up afterwards. So again, you might want to kind of twist a little bit just to make sure everything's in place. And you can tighten down a little bit more. Secure it. It should be nice and snug at that point. Okay, now you should still be able to move the wires through here. You'll need to be sure that they're free to move. And okay, so that was step one. And then, so the next stage, you'll need your top panel. Now, typically the acrylic will come with some sort of a covering on it. Fortunately, this particular material is pretty easy for me to take off. You may wind up having a paper covering, which takes a bit more effort to take off in one piece. But so basically, just strip it off. From both sides. And for those guys that do have paper coverings, you're probably hating me right now. Oh well. And then you see this opening here, and the acrylic, feed your wires through that, and feed your feed tubes through that. Going to need to get your wires and your feed tube. So the wires go in the smaller part of it, and the feed tube goes through the bigger part. Now, after that, you can put your corner blocks on. So basically there's three of these corner blocks. There's a closed face and an open face to them. Use the open face. And I'll show you the orientation after I kind of get it into place. So what you're going to want to do is get these screwed on, but you don't want to over tighten them too much. It'll be better to leave them to where you can move them around a little bit after you're done. So kind of maybe even back them off a little bit. Okay, so they're going to wind up in this orientation. So you see the open face facing towards this panel, and then you probably want to leave them just loose enough to where you can move them around a bit. And then the slots face towards the edges. You're going to do the same thing here and here. So open face towards the top, and the features open to the sides. And if you have a helper working alongside you, they could actually do this assembly while you're doing the extrusion assembly before putting it in place, which is kind of how the instruction manual shows it. It's the last step of actually putting this panel in place can be done either before or after you do these corner blocks. I'm just doing it just because this way I've got two hands to work with it, and the corners are supported freely. Now, the next step is to basically screw all this down so that the top panel is connected to the chassis. Some important points: make sure that the slots that have small tabs, so here and here, so right at the middle of both of these, make sure that the little tabs stick up into the slots. Otherwise, you'll see that it goes up over them. On these 3 points, this is where you'll screw into. There's a feature that fits just inside the opening here on all 3 points, and that helps locate this top in relation to everything. So make sure that it fits down, that the feature fits up into the holes and locates properly. Otherwise, it's going to be all over the place. And also your assembly's not going to be rigid. Okay. And I would tend to not over tighten these. You're better off getting them snug, but actually a little bit loose, and then going back and tightening them a little bit later, because what you'll find is if you really crank these down, it actually bends the panels in weird ways. So you're actually better off being a little bit on the loose side. So as soon as you start seeing the panel flex, try to back it out a little bit until you don't see any more flex. It's the easiest route to go. One word of caution: with laser cut panels, do be careful. The sides tend to be quite sharp. You could actually rub into something basically to break the edge a little bit if you wanted to. They are sharp enough that they will cut you if you Okay. And that's it for this one. I think it looks like this one probably needs a little bit more material in it.